Welcome to Courting Cinderellas on the Field of 68 Media Network. This series is made possible by our partners at Prediction Strike, the only marketplace that allows you to buy and sell shares of your favorite athletes. Hear more at the end of this interview. Now, pleased to welcome in Central Arkansas head coach Anthony Boone, who is going to break down the Southland champion Abilene Christian Wildcats for us. And Anthony, let's start with the easy one. Why can Abilene Christian advance in the NCAA tournament?
Well, Jeff, Abilene Christian is very tough and play very, very aggressive and solid defense. And if anything's going to help them to advance, it'll be just that, their toughness and their defense. It's outstanding.
It's funny because you say that, and I know Joe Golding is very close with Chris Beard at Texas Tech. So it almost sounds like you're talking about a mid-major Texas Tech team there.
Certainly. They are very similar and actually played them very well during the season. So, yes, they are very similar to Texas Tech.
So who are the top players that we got to watch out for Abilene?
Well, they're pretty balanced offensively, I will say. They like to attack inside with Cole and Pleasant. But I tell you who's probably just as valuable as anybody is Daniels, their little point guard. He doesn't score a whole lot. He doesn't lead them in assists, but his energy and his enthusiasm seems to energize and to motivate that whole team. I think he's their most important player.
Anybody else that you think has to have a big day for them to be able to advance?
Well, I think Reggie Miller, whose namesake was an outstanding basketball player, I think he needs to have a really good game also.
Can he shoot it like his namesake or not quite?
Not quite like his namesake, but he does shoot it okay. He's a solid player and does pretty good amount of scoring for them.
So if you're Joe Golding, what's your biggest concern going into the NCAA tournament? What's your weakness? What do you worry about?
I would say the biggest concern would be the lack of consistent shooting from the outside. That would be it. They've got good pieces inside. They drive the ball well, but their shooting from the outside is not as consistent as it might need to be to pull off an upset.
Well, there you have it. The breakdown of Abilene Christian from none other than Central Arkansas head coach Anthony Boone, who certainly knows Joe Golding's team very well. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, we now welcome in South Alabama head coach Richie Riley to give us the scoop on Appalachian State and Dustin Kearns, who are the surprise winners in the Sun Belt tournament. So first, Richie, give us your take. Why can App State win a game in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, obviously in our league, we're really familiar with each other. We played each other 4 times, which is, like a once in a lifetime thing because of the pandemic. But looking at App State, there's no question they can have a chance to win a game. Incredibly disciplined, and they're never out of games. I think that's the one thing that stuck with me throughout the season is they could dig a little bit of a hole, and they just had a fight about them, or they could find their way to stay in games. And I think in March, it's incredibly important. We saw them win 4 straight here, and all of them were tight.
Yeah.
And when you get to the NCAA tournament, and they should be a 14, 15, I don't know. Like the net and all this stuff, I'm not intelligent enough to decide that, but they should be somewhere in there. And I think if it's a favorable matchup for them, they're going to be in the game. That's just their DNA as a team. They'll be in the game because they play with so much fight and discipline. And the other thing about App State, they've been battle tested. They've played. Our league was a bloodbath. I mean, they finished 4th in our side, and you see how good they are. So there's no question they'll be ready to go. They're very well coached. Dustin does an incredible job, and they got kids that just believe and want to fight.
So who are their best players? Who do we got to watch for?
It's really unique when you talk about their personnel and who's the best player. You can usually look at a team and say, this guy is their go-to guy. This guy is their most talented guy. For them, they do it by committee, and I think that's what makes them a good team, and it makes them dangerous in March is, you look at Delph, who can really, really score. He's a 3-level scorer, and he's got the capability to have a big game. Forrest is a guy's percentage isn't great right now, but he's a guy in our league. He's been a first-team all-league guy, and he can go off for 25 or 30 at any given night. And then to me, maybe their most valuable guy is Gregory. Do-it-all guy. He's their tough guy that gives them energy and a toughness about him, and his versatility allows him to score in a lot of different ways and get to the free throw line. And then the fourth prong to it is Alamansi, who had 32 last night. And they have 4 guys that are capable of scoring 20 points in any given game, and they're all 4 comfortable doing that. So I think that's an advantage they have. You have to kind of pick your poison, who you're going to try to limit, and then it could open up opportunities for those other guys.
What do you worry about them in the NCAA tournament the most? What's their weakness if they have one?
They're really solid. They don't have a ton of chinks in their armor, to be honest. Like, they are really solid. Again, very well coached. They're disciplined. They compete. The one thing that a lot of games come down to, especially in tournament play, is do you have a guy that you can put the ball in his hands late shot clock and create? And they don't have that guy necessarily. They have guys that are capable of that. Forrest can get some paint. Delph can get some paint. Alamanti can get some paint. But they don't have anybody that averages over 3 assists. And late shot clock pressure situations in an NCAA tournament setting, you need that guy that can get some paint and create for other guys. So I'm not saying that none of those guys can do that, but that's not necessarily what they do. So if I had to pick one, it would be that. They're tremendous defensively. Again, they're very disciplined offensively, don't make a ton of mistakes. They don't beat themselves. So that would be the one thing that I would say could potentially hurt them.
Well, there you have it. The scoop on App State from none other than South Alabama head coach Richie Riley. Thanks, Richie.
No problem. Enjoyed it.
All right, we're now pleased to be joined by Fort Wayne head coach John Kaufman to give us the scoop on the Horizon League tournament champion Cleveland State Vikings. And I know, John, you played them 5 times this year, so you got a pretty good idea of why they can win a game in the NCAA tournament. Why?
Well, and we played them 3 of our last 4 games coming down the stretch, and had some success in the games. But I'll tell you what, Dennis has done a phenomenal job there and turned the program. I was not in the league last year, but saw how depleted they were and how quickly they turned it, and why they could potentially win a game in the tournament. I mean, they really defend you. And they are extremely tough. They have a mantra of this great energy. I mean, it's like a fraternity party on their bench. I mean, I don't know how many guys they got on there, but I mean, it's fun just panning in on the bench to watch them. And that energy helps them to win ugly. I mean, they'll play 12 or 13 guys. In the second game on back-to-back nights at our place, finish the year, they threw in a rarely used player to come in and just jam our exhausted guard. I mean, he does a great job utilizing everybody. And they do a great job of keeping you out of rhythm. I mean, they run a 2-2-1, they run a 1-2-2. They'll come back into a 2-3 zone. They'll come back into man. They go man full. They'll jam you on makes and on misses. I mean, and we play extremely fast and have been a great pass and catch team over the years. One of the games they turned us over 27 times. Wow. And they do a great job of jamming on missed baskets, which, I mean, 22 years, I've never seen somebody do that and do it successfully. They also, they don't have one player to target. And
I was going to ask you that. My next question was who's their best player? Who do we have to watch for?
Well, I mean, I don't know who their best player, and that's why they're hard. But I would say, having played them 5 times, somebody who just scouts them one time, they're going to look at, Torrey Patton, who's their top scorer, top rebounder. They ISO him on. He does a nice job. He's an elite driver. But, I think having played them 5 times and watched them, another 10 or 15 is Trey Gamillion, whose stats are not outlandish, but just he's a winner. winning plays, and they do, some flex hold action late in the game. He's tough around the rim, some baseline out of bounds, go-to type actions where he just out muscles you down there. And just, he's a great rebounder. I mean, as soon as he gets late shot clock, he's going to start wedging you underneath the rim and does a really good job with that. And then obviously Eichenberger, who hit the his 1-3 of the year, as they're 6'9", whatever, 275-pound big man. I don't know if that's a threat other than to us in that triple overtime game, but he got healthy through the year. Did not play in the first time when we played them back in December, but he can score the ball. But what he's really good at is drawing fouls. He's really, really good at drawing fouls. And so kind of those three, but man, I don't want to negate those other guys. They just have a lot of good players.
Where do they struggle? What's the area of concern, if there is one, with Cleveland State going to the tournament?
Well, they don't shoot it great. Yeah. But as you go into it and I've always taken pride in, okay, hey, we shoot it really well. I don't want to, I'm not a good enough coach to mask it, and so I got to create space with great shooters. That's the better coach to me, man. He's figured out how to do it because he's got, those two guys, they're two best players. Trey Gamillion, he's made 3 threes, I think, on the year, at least when we played him 2 weeks ago. And then Torrey Patton's, a mid-20s 3-point shooter, but guys have not figured out, they just take up that space. Now, if you get into the tournament and now they're playing, a Power 5 team that has the size and athleticism as you get into the paint to really change it, like they may not be able to draw the fouls that they do at our level. Yep. And so, I think they only had 1 Power 5 game against Ohio State. So you don't really, they're not as battle tested against, that level. But at the mid-major plus level, those guys just figure out a way to take up space. And in 5 games, we never figured out how to shut those guys down.
There you have it. The scouting report from somebody that's played them 5 times, John Kaufman, Fort Wayne, on the Cleveland State Vikings. All right, we're now joined by Boston University head coach Joe Jones to break down the Patriot League champion Colgate team. And who better? Joe, you played him 5 times this year, so you probably know him better than Matt Lengel knows him.
Well, I was 0-5. Let's just say that. So, yeah, I got a good taste of those guys, but they had great coach, terrific team, well-balanced squad.
So what are the reasons that you think they can win a game in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think they have great balance, Jeff. They have great guard play with Jordan Burns and Nelly Cummings. Tucker Richardson's a very underrated player. He's their glue guy, tremendous passer, great shooter, good size for a guard. But those 3 guards are terrific. They bring Jack Ferguson off the bench, who's their second leading scorer, who's a lights-out 3-point shooter, and then they have great balance up front. Keegan Records is terrific. Jeff Woodward off the bench was Patriot League Rookie of the Year. So they just have really good balance off the bench, and also they have experience. They've been there before. They have some guys that have been there before. They played in a lot of big games. They'll be a tough out. I really believe they'll be a tough out.
Who do people have to watch out for? Who's the player or players that are the guys, if they're going to pull an upset, it'll be on these guys?
Jordan Burns, and I do think when they get on that stage, Jordan Burns has to be Jordan Burns. Like if you look at the Tennessee game from a few years ago, he was tremendous. He had 22 and a half against us this past year. And in the championship game against Bucknell a few years ago, he went off for 20 points and a half. So I think he's a guy that's got to be the difference maker. He's got to be able to take his game to that level that he's capable of.
What's he like, Joe? What's his game like?
He's a really good jump shooter guard. So he's a guy that can come down and transition, and before you set up, he can make some shots from deep, and he can get in a rhythm and get going. He's also a really good ball screen player where he can come off the ball screen and make plays for himself and other people at a high level. Really, really talented guard.
What's your biggest concern, I guess, about them going into the NCAA tournament playing against the big boy?
If they don't have a great shooting night. And that could happen to a lot of people,
right.
But they make threes. When we beat them in the championship game, we did a decent job of contesting, but they missed some makeable threes. If they don't have a great, if they don't shoot a great percentage from 3, I think they could struggle, but a little bit different than they have in the past. the kid records and Woodard can score one-on-one at the basket. So that gives them something that they didn't have last year, is a back to the basket threat. But I do think the 3-point shot is their most efficient weapon for them to be successful.
Well, there you have it. The full breakdown from the guy who's played him 5 times, Joe Jones from BU, giving you the skinny on Colgate, the Patriot League champs. Thanks, Joe. Has there ever been a rookie that you just knew was going to be a star? How many young players in the NBA and the NFL have there been that you wish you could have invested in? Well, now Prediction Strike makes that wish a reality. Prediction Strike is the only performance-based sports stock market that allows you to buy and sell shares of professional athletes as if they were stocks. Prediction Strike lets fans create portfolios of their favorite athletes so that you can get even closer to the game. Don't just draft your favorite players in fantasy, invest in them. Here's what you have to do. Visit PredictionStrike.com or download their app on the App Store to create an account. Then deposit funds to buy, sell, or hold shares of your favorite players, just like you would do with real stocks. The value of the players will change based on game performance, and you can trade your shares of players at any time as long as the player isn't currently playing in a game. Prediction Strike also just rolled out a brand new feature that allows you to join a league or add friends just to see who the sharps are buying stock in. See who is performing well, who has a better portfolio than you, and whose trades you can follow. So head to PredictionStrike.com now or download the app now. Sign up with the promo code FIELD. Again, that's FIELD, F-I-E-L-D, and you'll receive $10 free with your first deposit of $20 or more. All right, we're now pleased to be joined by James Madison head coach Mark Byington to give us the skinny, the scoop on the CAA tournament champion Drexel Dragons. And Mark, let's start with the easy question, right? Why can they win a game? Why can Drexel advance in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think they're really efficient on offense, and they have a lot of guys that have potential to score double figures. Cameron Winter is a great decision maker out there. He's an all-conference point guard. Really doesn't get sped up, makes good decisions on ball screens, runs their stuff well. It all starts and stops with him. But I think if you look up and down the roster, they make shots. And so that was the hardest thing going against them, is they get good shots every possession. A lot of guys can make shots. And they do have some potential matchup problems too. They got an undersized center named James Butler. I think a lot of people on a Power 5 might underestimate by looking at him. The guy can really play. And he can shoot it. He can score. He hustles, gets loose balls. And they do have enough athleticism and guys like Bickerstaff and size with Walton that that I think if they get in a Power 5 matchup, they won't be underwhelmed with size. And they got a lot of guys can make shots and score.
Who are their best players? You mentioned a couple already. Who are the guys you really got to watch out for?
Yeah, Cameron Winter is really good. He's one of the best guards in the CAA, but he's also one of the best. You'll kind of see at this level for sure. And they've got a freshman that's played really well lately, Xavier Bell, who helped them make a tournament run here the last couple of days. They're older. Zach Walton's a grad guy. He's been in college 5 years. James Butler is a grad guy. So, they got some older guys. And a lot of times you see those mid-major teams that make the runs, they have veteran guys who have played basketball a while. And I think they finally got in a rhythm there towards the end of the year and figured out their way. And whether it's offense, defense, and kind of style of play, they had a nice mesh there the last couple of weeks.
What's the area that you worry about them in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think early on you kind of watched their team and they struggled on a defensive end a little bit. They're big, big wings and everything else. 6'5", 6'6" wings, and sometimes I thought quicker teams were able to get by them. I think they made adjustments though. They rebounded it very well, and but sometimes I thought faster teams would hurt them on defense. But it seems like they kind of fixed that the last couple of weeks. We played in the last regular season game, and we played 3 small guards, and we had trouble getting the paint on them, which I thought earlier in the year was kind of a thing you could do against them.
Yeah. Well, listen, we appreciate it getting the scoop from none other than JMU's Mark Byington on the NCAA tournament-bound Drexel Dragons. All right, we're now pleased to be joined by Idaho State coach Ryan Looney, who's going to give us the complete breakdown of the Big Sky champion Eastern Washington Eagles. And Ryan, we'll start with the easy one. Why can Eastern Washington win a game in the NCAA tournament?
I think they're a really unique team in college basketball right now. If you break down their roster, they have all 4-year guys. They don't have a single transfer in their program, not one from a junior college, not one from another 4-year school. They are all guys who are veterans that have been playing together for an extremely long time. They can really shoot the three. I think they're one of the best passing teams in college basketball in regards to their ball movement from side to side. And then Tanner Groves as a load in the post was the MVP of our conference. So have great experience. They're extremely skilled and have a really fantastic interior post presence as well.
So you talked a little bit about Tanner. Who are their best player or players?
I think they have a lot of them. Tanner Groves was the player of the year. Jacob Davison on their team was the preseason player of the year in our conference. And then Kim Aiken, their four-man, has probably been the guy who's been playing the best for them late in the season. And then they have a bunch of other guys that just kind of star in their role, make open shots, move the ball to the right spot, and I think they're playing hard defensively as well.
What do you worry about most with Eastern Washington, playing in the first round of the NCAA tournament? What's their weakness if they have one?
You know what? Maybe depth at the 5-man spot. When Tanner Groves gets in foul trouble or has to go in the game, they have to play a little bit smaller. They'll play with like 2 4s out there at that time. So if you get matched up against a high major team with a ton of physicality and size, I would guess that might be an area that someone would try to exploit.
How do you describe Tanner Groves' game, Ryan?
Oh, he plays extremely hard. He's running the middle of the floor on every offensive possession, working for post seals. We played against him, and I'm yelling at the officials for 3-second violations, trying to get him out of the paint. I think his physicality and just simply how hard he plays can make it tough on the opponent.
There you have it. The scoop on Eastern Washington from none other than Idaho State coach Ryan Looney, who knows them better than most. All right, we now welcome in Cal Baptist head coach Rick Croy to give us the full breakdown, the full scout on the Grand Canyon Antelopes who won the WAC tournament. Rick, why can Grand Canyon and Bryce Drew's team win a game in the NCAA tournament?
A tremendous program energy. They've had great energy the entire year, and they have probably the best front court maybe in mid-major college basketball. This Lever and Midgard have been sensational all season long, and those guys can do it against anybody.
Who are their best players? Kind of go into it a little bit more of Midgard and some of their other guys that you got to watch out for.
Well, Alessandro Lever's been, he's been an incredibly consistent player over his 4-year career at GCU, and he's gotten better every single year. And then Midgard, Asher Midgard's a transfer from Wichita State, and he's had a max out grad transfer senior season. I mean, he's been amazing, leading the nation in field goal shooting, rebounds the ball at a high level, 7 feet, 270 pounds of muscle, and he brings it, plays extremely hard. And those guys do a great job playing off each other. And Coach Drew's done a great job of getting the team to buy into them playing inside out basketball. It's old school.
Well, that sounds pretty different than everybody else in the way they want to play these days. What's their biggest weakness? What do you worry about with them going into the NCAA tournament?
People have packed it in on them because those guys don't just have good mid-major size. They have great high major size, and those guys have pounded people inside. So people have tried to pack it in. They've had stretches where their perimeter guys have made shots, and they've had stretches where those guys have struggled shooting the basketball. So that would be the concern for them.
Is their guard play veteran guard play, Rick, or are they young? Are they just not big time scorers?
They've got great guard play. I mean, Javon Blackshear, their point guard, is a great PG. Dixon's a transfer from St. John's. He can get it going. And Oscar Freyer's got great experience and is a tremendous athlete. So those guys they're more than capable, but they're streaky. And at times when people have really focused on their inside games, it's hurt them. But those guys are more than capable.
There you have it. The scoop from Cal Baptist head coach Rick Croy on the Lopes Grand Canyon Bryce Drew's team. Thanks, Rick. All right, we are now joined by Stony Brook head coach Gino Ford to break down the America East champion Hartford Hawks. And Gino, let's start with why can Hartford win a game in the NCAA tournament?
Well, they've got elite guard play. Defensively, they've been good all year. If you were to go back and look through their Ken Palm stuff, they've been a good defensive team all season. And Tracy Carter, the point guard, honestly might be the best defensive guard in the tournament. That may sound outlandish, but I'm telling you, go watch the guy. He played at Marquette. He transferred, and he's a veteran. He's a sixth-year player. So he's a grown man out there playing, defending. So he's smart. He knows how to play. He has led our league in steals the last couple of years. He's got accurate hands, long arms, and just he plays like he's playing at the YMCA, and I mean that as a compliment. He plays like a 35-year-old. So I think he can give some teams some real problems with some steals that lead to easy baskets. And if they're able to defend like they have, they're going to have a big chance this week.
You mentioned Tracy Carter. Who are their best players on this team this year?
Well, they had a really hard injury, and Gal did a great job managing it. I mean, they lost the Flowers kid who would have, been a first team or second team all-league guy. So now, they're looking at guys. They need jumpers from DJ Mitchell, who's an excellent marksman on the wing. Hunter Marks has just had a knack for timely jumpers. Stoffel in the middle is big and eats up space and is physical. And the other piece is Williams, who's just had a great year. He's kind of really been the unsung hero for their team. He came in from Marist, did not have huge stats at Marist. And now if you look what he's done this year, double-figure score, has gone for 20-plus in games and big games. He's a big, strong, physical wing that plays both ends of the floor. So they've got a really nice starting five that mashes well together. Tracy Carter, certainly the straw that stirs the drink for these guys.
All right. So what's the big thing, Gino, that you would be worried about with Hartford advancing in the NCAA tournament?
Well, they've got to make 3-point shots, and they won't be the only team that's an issue for, but they've got to make threes. If they don't shoot the ball well, they'll have a hard time because they're not a team that's going to just jam it inside on you a lot. Stoffel will get some baskets in there, and he's capable, but they shoot a lot of threes. So they're going to have to make jumpers. And I think their 3-point defense, which has been elite, and Gal's done a great job with that the last couple of years. These guys have not given up many threes. And so to me, I think the game will come down to that. If they can defend the 3-point line and they can make open jumpers, they're very capable of an upset because Tracy Carter will not let the tempo get in any direction other than what Gal and he decides that he wants.
Well, there you have it, the scoop on the Hartford Hawks from none other than Stony Brook head coach Gino Ford. Thanks, Gino.
Welcome to another episode of Courting Cinderella. I am thrilled to be joined today by Siena head coach Carmen Massarello, and we are going to be talking about MAC, automatic bid, Iona, Gales. Carmen, let me ask you this. What does Iona do well? Why can they win a game in the NCAA tournament?
You know what? They don't beat themselves. Have a really good player in Isaiah Ross. Coach Patino does a great job. He comes off a lot of staggers, a lot of pins and rescreens, and they get him the ball. And the guy that gets him the ball is Asante Gist. So those two guys are the key for Iona. But if you make it tough on Gist, they really struggle because they're not a high assist team when he's not sharing it. And he's not really a true point guard. He's more of a scoring guard. So, Asante Gist and Isaiah Ross are the two guys you got to be really mindful of. And then you got to be able to rebound, right? I think in the MAC tournament, they were plus 40 going into the championship game on the glass. If you don't box out and you give them second possessions, you'll be in for a long night. But you can hold them down in the half court. You can limit them, with great defense on their shooters and making them drive the ball and have to make plays. You just got to be able to get that kind of box out finished so you can attack at them in transition.
So you mentioned a couple of guys already. Is there anyone else that we need to know? Any other stars on this team that can take over a game in March?
Yeah, if you have a physical five-man, obviously Nelly Jr. Joseph, he was MAC Rookie of the Year. He does a tremendous job for only being a freshman. You know, you got to keep him off the glass. He will struggle to score against length and physicality. You know, I thought our big guys, when we played them in the first round, or actually the quarterfinals of the MAC tournament, you know, we did a good job on their big guys. Barrick Jean-Lou scored 13 on us in the second half. You know, they do a good job when they're not scoring the ball off of their set plays. You know, they do a good job of cutting, especially back cutting from the corners. So both Jean-Lou and Isaiah Ross will be able to score that way too. And then you gotta stay down and keep them off the free throw line.
So we talked about what they did well. We talked about their best players. Where can they struggle? Where can they be beaten?
Transition. If you're able to get them off the glass and push the basketball, transition defense isn't their strong suit. You got to be able to attack the paint and play inside out. Now, you don't want to settle for threes, but you can, you know, take those good feet set ones in rhythm. But you got to be able to get them, and then you got to make free throws. You can get to the foul line against them. You know, they have 2 and 3 guys that scramble when you kind of beat their first line of defense. And now all of a sudden they got guys out of position, guys going to block shots, and you should have little short passes in the paint. And then lastly, you got to get their 5-man when they switch onto your point guard. If you really attack them off the ball screen, they're going to string their 5-man out. And a lot of times he will stay when you go to attack. And now you got to be able to kind of cut back, or, you know, really maximize that switch and get the ball into your, you know, your post player who's being guarded by a smaller player. And then you got to be able to power the basketball to the basket and convert.
Well, there you have it, a scouting report on the Iona Gales from someone that knows them better than anybody else. Coach Carm, thanks so much.
All right, we're now joined by Stetson head coach Donnie Jones to break down the Liberty Flames, who dominated the ASUN this year. And Donnie, will start with an easy one. Why can Liberty win a game in the NCAA tournament this year?
Well, I think for several reasons, Jeff. I think number one being, them and Gonzaga, the last 3 years have been tied for 79 wins. So this is a program. Last year they won and advanced with the veteran team. They lost 4 starters and they come back. I just think their culture is so good. I think they played a very competitive non-conference schedule. They play with such a confidence, and they're really like a Power 5 school with the way they run their program, with the way they travel, with the way they have built their culture there. Richie McKay has done a terrific job, obviously, but they have experience guys. They have guys that's been in that culture. Their system with how they play, they're terrific defensively, giving up only 59.9 points per game. They're hard to score on. They play that pack line defense. And offensively, they got firepower. They got 2 really good guards that can create and make plays for each other, and Parker and McGee. And then the other guys around them can shoot the ball, and they're highly skilled and can really run good motion offense. So they're a very dangerous team to play against because they won't beat themselves come NCAA tournament time.
Who are their best players, Donnie?
Well, it starts with obviously McGee. Darius McGee is so deceiving, probably 5'9", with shoes on, 40-inch vertical, quick, plays at the same pace all the time, very hard. You know, we box and won him. We doubled him. We held him to 7 points. And when we beat him, we were the last team to beat him here at Stetson. That's their last loss. And we really disrupted him. But we tried the same thing, obviously, in the semifinals, Jeff, and he is so explosive. He had 9 assists right off. He can help their team win, not only scoring, but obviously making plays for others. Parker is a D2 transfer, another elite guard who can play very similar to him, who can score, get his own. And then I love Cuffey. Elijah Cuffey, he was the defensive player of the year. He's a lefty, 6'5", he can shoot it. He's a senior, and he brings that toughness and experience where he can slash and also score for him.
What do you worry about with Liberty? Where do they struggle? What's their weakness?
Yeah, well, I think they can beat you in a lot of ways, but I think obviously it really does start with McGee. I think if you can contain him and you can control him from making plays for others and not let him get 20 plus, I think you have a chance to negate the other guys because they're good players. They're solid. They'll play together as a team, but he's the star power. I think he's got to, especially in the NCAA tournament, be a guy who's got to shine for him. Had 34 in the championship game of the regular season against Bellarmine. He can 8 for 9 from the 3-point line. He's one of those guys can get them on his own. But if you can negate that and you can force the other ones to make plays, it gives you a chance against them.
There you have it. Quick scouting report on the Liberty Flames from none other than Stetson head coach Donnie Jones. Thanks, Donnie. All right, we are now joined by Eastern Kentucky head coach A.W. Hamilton, who will break down the Morehead State Eagles. And A.W., first one's an easy one. Why can Morehead State win a game in the NCAA tournament?
Jeff, I'm going to give you 5 quick reasons. All right. The first one is they got a heck of a basketball coach in Preston Spradlin. He's done a sensational job. I have a ton of respect for him and what he does with his program. 2, they play great half-court defense. They guard the 3-point line, and they don't foul. All right. 3, they put a lot of pressure on your defense with their guards by attacking the paint. All right. And then they got Janai Broom, who's having a phenomenal year as a freshman. I mean, a phenomenal year. All right. 4, they rebound the basketball exceptional. They get 40% of their own misses. All right. And then number 5, they make timely shots. They make clutch threes. They got Skylar Potter and the Coopers can really make shots. I mean, they can make shots, but all 3 of those guys can hit shots late in the shot clock, and they can hit shots in clutch situations.
All right, so you mentioned some players. Who are their best players? Who do people need to watch for?
Well, I think you start with the freshman Broom. He can really score. He's left-handed. He gets over his right shoulder. He gets to his spots. If you let him get deep angle scores, he's tremendous. The thing I give him credit for as the seasons went on is he's made his free throws. Down the stretch when they beat us in the conference tournament, they made their free throws. But a kid that I really love for them that I think is he could be the reason why they win a game is Skylar Potter. Big time athlete. He can make shots. He can get his own shot. He can shoot it from deep. So those 2 guys, I think, give them a chance to win a game.
What do you worry about them? What's their weakness if they have one?
That's tough. I think the world of Preston. I think I think he's done a tremendous job. Where we were able to beat them when we beat them is we turned them over. We were able to turn them over 27 times and come up with 17 steals. And, so that's how we beat them. Now, it only worked 1 of the 3 times, but, they're a good basketball team. They're going to compete with anybody they play against.
Yeah, they've been on a roll, certainly, to close out the season, as hot as just about any team in the country. All right, we appreciate the scouting report. A.W. Hamilton of Eastern Kentucky breaking down Morehead State.
Welcome to another edition of Courting Cinderella. I am thrilled to be joined today by Bryant head coach Jared Grasso. Jared, let's talk a little bit about Mount St. Mary's. You played them during the season. So tell me, what do they do well? Why can they win a game in the NCAA tournament?
Defensively, they're very physical. They really guard you. That's the one thing. They have size and bigger than, their size is kind of mid-major plus high major size. They're big on the wings. They're big and athletic up front, and they sit down and guard you. So they play at a slow pace. They try and grind you out, and in a low-scoring game and a physical game will be to their advantage. They're a team that if the game's in the 40s and 50s, low 60s, low possession game, they can give you a hard time because they can stop you in the half court. And they have a point guard who can kind of control the game.
So every Cinderella needs a hero, right? Who are the guys on this Mount St. Mary's team that we need to know about? Who are their best players? Who can carry this team to an upset win?
I mean, Damian Chalanqui has carried them all year. He's made every big shot, every big play, down the stretch against us in the championship game, makes a huge 3 when we're making our run to get into the conference tournament, made a huge 3 to put a game into overtime against St. Francis, PA. He's a tough Baltimore kid who has made every big shot this season, and he's a guy who can put them on his back and just so tough and gritty, and he makes plays, and the ball's going to be in his hands all game long. So he's kind of the catalyst for them, and a guy who, if they're in a close game, he's a guy who's taking a big shot for them.
So where do they struggle? Where is the mismatch that you can take advantage of with them? What should we be looking for in terms of teams that can match up with them well?
I think they have some offensive limitations. They're not a great shooting team. They usually only put 1, maybe 2 guys on the floor who are really knock it out shooters. So if today where they're not making shots or they're not scoring with their interior guys, they can have some struggles offensively. So I think their biggest kind of weakness is the fact that offensively they don't stretch you out a ton. And if they match up with a team whose size is similar to theirs, they could have some struggles because of their offensive limitations.
Well, there you go. That's Jared Grasso, Bryant's head coach, giving you the scouting report that you need to know on Mount St. Mary's. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Rob.
Has there ever been a rookie that you just knew was going to be a star? How many young players in the NBA and the NFL have there been that you wish you could have invested in? Well, now Prediction Strike makes that wish a reality. Prediction Strike is the only performance-based sports stock market that allows you to buy and sell shares of professional athletes as if they were stocks. Prediction Strike lets fans create portfolios of their favorite athletes so that you can get even closer to the game. Don't just draft your favorite players in fantasy, invest in them. Here's what you have to do. Visit predictionstrike.com or download their app on the App Store to create an account. Then deposit funds to buy, sell, or hold shares of your favorite players, just like you would do with real stocks. The value of the players will change based on game performance, and you can trade your shares of players at any time as long as the player isn't currently playing in a game. Prediction Strike also just rolled out a brand new feature that allows you to join a league or add friends just to see who the sharps are buying stock in. See who is performing well, who has a better portfolio than you, and whose trades you can follow. So head to predictionstrike.com now or download the app now. Sign up with the promo code FIELD. Again, that's FIELD, F-I-E-L-D, and you'll receive $10 free with your first deposit of $20 or more. All right, now pleased to be joined by none other than Delaware State head coach Eric Skeeters to break down the Norfolk State Spartans who won the MEAC. Skeets, give me the lowdown. Can this team win a game in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Rob Jones and the MEAC Conference and Coach Brodus at Morgan State. Hell of a game. Jones has been there 14 years. He was an assistant in that 2012 squad when Kyle Quinn, when they beat 15 seed, beat a 2. They beat Missouri that year. And 2019, they beat Alabama in NIT in the first round. So he's coached in the postseason. Had experience of winning, what it takes to win in the postseason. He's got a group, Chavez, his leading, it's his utility guy, Keon Chavez. Okay. Joe Bryant, his leading scorer. Joe Bryant can get it going. So Joe Bryant had 30 in the first round against Central. And the key to a recipe to success in the postseason is making shots. And so Norfolk is a team, they've already experienced winning on the road. First game of the year, they won at James Madison, right? They went in and beat George Mason right in before conference play, right after Christmas. So they've already won against quote unquote higher level conferences on the road in their building. So let's say if they go to Dayton, right, if they're in that first 4, they get a chance to get a win under their belt because they're going to probably play if they're a 15, 16 seed, play another 15, 16 seed. They've won versus better conferences, so to speak, in regards to the level. But they're a program. Coach Jones has been there, 8 years as a head coach? Yeah. So it tells you, Jeff, how hard it is, my man, to win in one of these one-bid conferences. Like, he's been in multiple championship games. He's finally gotten a chance, and he beat Central. Yep. So, put that to rest where they played the previous champions or what have you. Put that to rest, and now he's won it. He's in the dance.
Who are the best players in this team? Kind of go through with me. Who are the guys you got to watch out for?
Devontae Carter. He was my vote for Player of the Year in the conference, along with the kid from Coppin who eventually won it. He was a leading scorer. He's the point guard. He's the engine. He makes them run. He makes them go.
What type of point guard? What
great off the bounce. Kind of a herky-jerky in and out, almost like a New York City game. He's from Virginia, but he's got that little breakdown, great Euro, great body control, getting in the paint, can find guys. He's averaging multiple assists a game, but he's their leading scorer. He's their engine. He makes them go. And then he finds guys. He makes plays. They run a ton of stuff for him, for Joe Bryant, where they get you with misdirection stuff and get shots for these guys off staggers, drives, and kicks. And Joe Bryant, like I said, he's a guy that can get it going. First or second team all-conference player this year. Again, 30, 20-something today. So he's got it going in the postseason.
What is he? What's Bryant?
Bryant's a 2-guard. He's their 2-guard. He's their 2. He's another local kid, another Norfolk kid. And they rotate guys in the post. So J.J. Matthews mostly starts. He's a senior. Yep. Hicks is a guy. What's Hicks' first name? Keyshawn Hicks. And number 1, let me find his name real quick. Chambers. Like they rotate those three dudes and playing their inside out game. So if you trap Carter, you get the ball out of his hands, they're a threat to make shots. And then they got a post press. They got a kid named Chris Ford, that comes in off the bench, big body, was on that team as a freshman when they beat Alabama 2 years ago. So now he's a junior. They're back in the postseason. So they come at you with some weapons.
What do you worry about with them? What's their weakness?
If they're not making shots.
Okay.
If they have an off day in the tournament, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
They got guys coming off the bench. Tyrese Jenkins. I mean, he's an underclassman. I think he was on the all-rookie team last year. He's a sophomore, along with Bryant. And it's another kid, Mustafa Lawrence. Went to Fresno State out of high school. Yeah,
I remember him.
Really good guard.
Yep.
If they have a lot of weapons, but if they have an offshoot night, like they lost to Coppin State at home in the regular season game. They lost Morgan State at home in the regular season game. They lost to Wilmington at home in a regular season game. So the nights the shots aren't falling, it could be a long night for them.
Well, listen, we appreciate the breakdown. Delaware State head coach Eric Skeeters, none better at breaking down the MEAC champs, Norfolk State.
Listen, appreciate you, Jeff. Appreciate you having me. Look for us to be in this. Hopefully we can be in it next year.
All right, we're now pleased to be joined by Louisiana Tech head coach Eric Conkle, who is going to break down the Conference USA champion North Texas Mean Green. So, Eric, why can the Mean Green win a game or advance in the NCAA tournament?
Well, Jeff, they're playing great basketball. So many times in March, it's about being hot, and they're playing really, really well. They won 4 games in 4 days in the conference tournament. They're battle tested in our league. We had 5 teams in the top 100 of KenPom, and they've beaten some really good teams coming up. They're gritty defensively. They're efficient offensively. It'll be a lower possession game, and they've shown the last several days that they can win close games.
Yeah, and they beat a good Western Kentucky team, obviously, with a future NBA player, Charles Bassey, in the title game. Who are the players we need to really look out for North Texas?
Well, Jeff, they start with Javion Hamlet. He was last year's Conference Player of the Year. He is a dynamic guard. He's got a tight handle. He's got a really, really elite floater game and can get to spots. He's going to have the ball in his hands an awful lot. They run a lot of different pick and rolls. They're deliberate with it. They put him in a ton of actions, and he really is the engine for their team, and he's really good. He played extremely well in the conference tournament. They lost 3 games in a row going into the conference tournament, but them defensively, him in particular, I think he averaged close to 20 points per game over the conference tournament, really put them on their back, made a bunch of big plays down the stretch. But he's a guy that's really got to make them go. Of course, on the inside, they've got Simmons. He's a good post player. He can pass it. He can score it. And then they've got a number of guards that can really stretch the floor in Reese and McBride and Bell. So very, very balanced team. But Javion Hamlet's going to be the guy that makes them go.
What do you worry about them most about them, Eric? What's their weakness? What could they struggle with going into the tournament?
Well, I think right now they're not as deep. They've had a couple injuries to their bench, so they've played big minutes. But again, they've shown they played 4 games in 4 days, which is rare for someone to be able to go through a conference tournament and win like that, especially against the slate that they went through. They had to beat Middle Tennessee, then Old Dominion, our team, then Western Kentucky. So they're a tough, gritty team. They're not as deep right now. They can have some scoring lulls, but at the same time, they defended at a very high level the last 4 days, and that is going to keep them in games.
Well, there you have it. The full breakdown on Conference USA champion North Texas, coming from none other than Louisiana Tech head coach Eric Conkle. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Jeff.
We are now joined by Kent State head coach Rob Senderoff to give us the complete breakdown on the MAC champion Ohio Bobcats. First, Rob, why can Ohio go, win a couple games maybe in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think they can. Obviously, the matchup and who they play is, in the tournament, that determines a lot of that. But if you just look at their team, Ohio's team, most games they're going to have the best player on the court. Jason Preston, NBA talent, first team all conference player, elite point guard. and with the position that he plays, having the ball in his hands and being the playmaker that he is, that gives them a chance against just about anyone. But they have a much deeper team than just him.
How do they play, Rob? How do they play?
Well, they are incredibly gifted offensive team, one of the best passing teams in the country. Of their 6 main players, 5 of them have a positive assist to turnover rate. And they have a 4-man, Ben Vanderplas, who's an inside-outside guy, can score from 3, shooting close to 40% from 3. But he also is a really good passer out of the post and from the perimeter. So you put that together, and he's experienced. He's a redshirt junior. You put that together with a point guard. They have an interior player in Dwight Wilson who can score at the basket, shoots about 70% from the field. And they've got a couple wings that can knock down shots, and one of them's a really good defender as well in London McDay. So I look at their team and I say they're good enough to beat most teams on any given night in the country.
Give us a little more on Preston. Everybody's going to want to know all about Jason Preston and what makes him so special.
Yeah.
He's got the size. I love him. I think, again, talking to him early in the season, seems like a great kid. But what do you love about Jason Preston? What's so hard to game plan for him?
Yeah, here's the interesting thing on him, to me. First of all, during the conference season, he got hurt a little bit. He didn't play the whole conference season. And statistically, Vanderplas probably had a better year in league than Preston did. But obviously, Jason Preston is the elite player on their team and the elite point guard, one of them in the country. We played them in January, and we beat them at their place. We beat them pretty handedly. And I thought we did a phenomenal job on Preston. I thought the way we defended him was off the charts. And then I looked at the box score, and he had 24 points, 10 assists, no turnovers, and 7 rebounds. And I said, boy, throughout the whole game, I thought we did a great job. And still he had 24 points, 10 assists, and no turnovers. So he's just that type of player where he's good. And now this year, especially of late in the conference tournament, he's shooting the 3 at a level that, separates him. Well, that would have been his Achilles heel going into the season. In league play, he didn't shoot it great. May have been because of injuries and COVID pauses. I don't know. But right now, I watched him the 3 games, starting with our first game in the quarterfinals. And I don't know that he's touched the rim on a 3-point shot. So he's got size. He's an elite passer with tremendous feel. And right now he's shooting the ball so well that it makes it even more difficult to guard him and to decide how are we guarding him as an opponent.
Where do they struggle? What's their weakness? What do you worry about with them in a first round matchup?
Yeah. So to me, again, when we beat them at their place. At halftime, the rebounding margin was 26-6 in rebounds. We are one of the more physical teams in the league. Buffalo, who they lost to in their last regular season game, they obviously beat them in the championship game. Buffalo is one of the more physical teams in the league. Buffalo dominated them physically in their first matchup or second matchup, but the matchup at the end of the season. We dominated them physically in our first matchup against them. They've gotten better defensively. They certainly have. They've gotten better rebounding wise. They've gotten better with their interior defense. But the teams that they've struggled with, or the teams that have beat them, Buffalo beat them handedly. We beat them handedly. We went after them inside, and we dominated the glass, and we were the more physical team the game we won. If there's a matchup like that, where the team's personnel is really interior, tough, physical guys, and you can guard Preston, that would be their Achilles heel, if there is one. And they've gotten better. Certainly the MAC tournament, they defended at a really high level, but that's where they struggled in conference.
All right, there you have it. The breakdown of Ohio U, the MAC champions by none other than Kent State head coach Rob Senderoff. Thanks, Rob. We are now joined by South Dakota State head coach Eric Henderson to give us the full breakdown of the Summit League champion Oral Roberts. And Eric, why can Oral Roberts win a game in the NCAA tournament?
Well, it still stings. I'll be honest with you, Jeff. They won a heartbreaker, but it is what it is. And as far as Oral Roberts go, man, they really have the ability to space you out. I mean, obviously the two-headed monster, with Max Asmus and Kevin O'Banner are dynamite. But what Paul does a great job is they play this 5-out motion where they really can shoot it from multiple positions, and then they put the ball in their playmakers' hands and let whatever happens. And then to go along with that, they're very versatile. They got the O'Banner kid can really play inside as well, and with his back to the basket. So they have some versatility, and then how they can space you out. They're going to be a tough out.
All right, so you mentioned a couple names. Give me the best player or players on this team that everybody's got to watch for.
Max Asmus is a beast. I mean, obviously he's leading the country in scoring, and he certainly is capable of that, Jeff. But maybe what's more importantly, he gets other players involved too. And they run a 2-man game up there with Max and then Kevin O'Banner, and they put your team into some tough positions. What are you going to take away? And Max has the ability to get downhill and score around the rim. He's slithery in there. He has a pull-up game that's very efficient, and then obviously has range well beyond the arc. And then if you try to get the ball out of his hands, he's such a willing passer. He averaged over 8 assists in the Summit League tournament, and when all the teams are trying to take him away. And then, so if he gives it up, they got guys that are capable, and O'Banner's their other guy. He can be a beast on the glass. He's probably one of the best offensive rebounders in the country. And so with those two guys, they're going to give you, a chance to be in every game.
All right, so 2 stars, shooters, versatile. What do you worry about with Oral Roberts in the NCAA tournament?
Some of their physicality in the post. They if they get a matchup that is very, very physical, sometimes their post defense can, and just the physicality of it can really give them some fits. We've in 2 of our 3 games against them, we've out-rebounded them by almost 20 rebounds. And so if they can find a way to keep it close on the glass and protect the paint a little bit, they're a very dangerous team.
Well, listen, we appreciate getting the scoop, getting the full breakdown. Eric Henderson, South Dakota State, went against them 3 times, and it certainly sounds like Oral Roberts, a dangerous matchup in the NCAA tournament. Thanks, Eric.
You bet. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, now pleased to be joined by Alcorn State head coach Landon Bussey, who is going to break down the SWAC champion Texas Southern Tigers. All right, Landon, why can Texas Southern win a game in the NCAA tournament?
I think they can win a game just due to, Coach Jones, he worked at LSU, so he's ready for that platform. And then they're bringing in a lot of guys who, high major transfer, as in Michael Weathers, John Walker from Texas A&M, Galen Alexander from Stephen F. Austin. They have a lot of different guys who they have brought in, and guys who could really get the job done. But I really think that more so anything that they have the experience. They beat Wyoming this year. They're ready for that level. And, Galen Alexander, I forgot about him, transferred from Georgetown. So they have guys who played at that high level before, who's ready to step up on that stage.
Yeah, a lot of transfers, a lot of high major transfers. Who are the names? Who are the guys that you really got to pay attention to?
You got to pay attention to Michael Weathers. I mean, he is dangerous at getting to the paint. I think we did a pretty good job preparing for him and just trying to go under ball screens, trap ball screens, hard hedge ball screens. But he was ready for anything that we did. And, it just comes with, his experience, his athleticism, and his length. He's a legit 6'2", 6'3" guard that can score at all 3 levels. He's tough, can get to the basket, and can finish through contact. And then you got Carl Nichols, transfer from Stephen F. Austin. He's extremely tough. He's athletic. He's physical. He got some grit to him and tough. He's not going to back down from anybody. He plays extremely hard. And you got Galen Alexander, who's a legit 6'7", got long arms, athletic, can play on the wing, can score at all three levels. Who played on that platform before at the high major level. So those are three guys that I'll really focus on.
So if you're Johnny Jones, you're going to the NCAA tournament. What are you worried about? What's your weakness? What do you need to happen?
I'm kind of concerned about their depth. Especially at the point guard position. When Michael Weathers, gets in foul trouble, he gets tired. I think they struggle as far as getting to that offense that they want to run. But they do have, some good backup point guards. But it's different when Michael Weathers in the game when he has the ball. So that would be one thing I would be concerned about is just the depth that they have at that point guard position. But I think every other position is pretty much full for them.
Well, listen, we appreciate the breakdown on Texas Southern. It comes from Courting State head coach Landon Bussey. Landon, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, now joined by UC Riverside head coach Mike Magpayo, and he's going to break down the Big West champion Santa Barbara Gauchos. And Mike, first thing I'm going to ask you is, why can UCSB advance in the NCAA tournament?
Well, besides the fact that I'm an alum of the Gauchos, they are very talented. They have Pac-12 transfers in Jordan McLaughlin, who was the Big West Player of the Year, and Miles Norris, who's really all of 6'10", high major athleticism and shooting ability. So I would say their talent 1 through, and then the grad transfers they brought in. So 1 through 9, I think they were the most talented team in the league.
How do they play, Mike? What type of style do they play?
Coach Pasternak, since I've been here in 3 years, they have a very efficient offensive style. And that's why Miles Norris, they really play this 4-out system, and Miles Norris' shooting ability really spreads the floor for them. Obviously, Jordan McLaughlin, their point guard, player of the year, really drives the whole thing because he can shoot, facilitate. He's 6'5", and I really think he looks like an NBA player to me. And then inside, I'm going to mention his name, the other first-team all-conference guy, Amadou Sow. So they spread the floor with those 4 guys, and then you have Amadou Sow, who's a 6'9" athletic monster inside that you have to plan for. If you try to guard him one-on-one, which we tried to once this year, he had 20-something points.
Defensively, how do they play? Do they get after you, or are they more?
They're very pack line, so they play pack line style. But it is this is their best defensive year since I've been here. They're just all locked in on what they're trying to do. But it's pack line defense, and they're big. Ramsey, their point guard, is probably the smaller one, but they are with McLaughlin at 6'4", Amadou Sow 6'9". Their backup big comes in at 6'10", and Miles Norris all of 6'10" again. They are big, long, lengthy in that pack line. Very, very hard to score against.
So talent, high major talent, some high major size. If you are Joe Pasternak, what are you worried about? What's your weakness kind of going into the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, what's crazy is there's not all the analytics say they're top 50 in the net. I mean, top 70, top 60 KenPom, but maybe just inexperienced. They haven't been there yet. They haven't. This is the first time they've gotten there. Coach Pasternak has gotten there. Now he has experience at Arizona, obviously, but that would be the only thing. Maybe it's just their inexperience, their first time getting to the Big West. To the NCAA tournament.
Well, there you have it. The scouting report on UCSB from an alum and somebody who knows him well from playing against him, Mike Magpayo from UC Riverside. Thanks, Mike. All right, we're now joined by Chattanooga head coach Lamont Paris to break down the SoCon champs, UNC Greensboro. And Lamont, we'll start with an easy one. Why can UNCG win a game in the NCAA tournament this year?
Well, I think they've got a lot of experience in winning tradition. They're used to winning. I think that's a big part of it. But as far as their actual physical attributes and attributes as a team, they defend at such a high level, and they're really good physically that I think if they can force some turnovers, which is something that they've had success doing, if they can force some turnovers, and a lot of teams may not go against that type of pressure during the course of the regular year, that they can be really dangerous when their defense generates offense. But I think it's because they've got experience. They got some really good players. The reigning 2-time player of the year is on their roster, and they have such a mindset of winning and had experience winning that I think in the tournament oftentimes it comes down to experience and who's rattled and who's got guys that have been there, and they have had that type of experience, and I think they can win because of that.
Who are their best players?
Well, it's Isaiah Miller is again, he's the aforementioned two-time reigning player of the year in the Southern Conference, and he's a big-time player, competitor, and winner. And so when you have a guy like that, you have to start with him. He's the head of the proverbial dragon, and so you have to start with him, and he makes a lot of the things happen for them. He makes their team go. So I'd start with him, and then after that, it's by committee, to be honest with you. They play a lot of guys, and they have a lot of guys that are capable of scoring. And on any particular day, they honestly have another 6 guys that could go bananas and be the second guy. But where they really, if Isaiah Miller really gets it going, they are a tough out if he's really generating a lot on the offensive end.
Last question. What do you worry about with them going into the NCAA tournament? If they have a weakness, what is it?
Yeah, because of their reliance upon Isaiah Miller to generate offense, I think that's a big thing for them, is just how their offense is generated. I think they hang their hats on the defensive end and making physical plays. 2 areas. One, I think a lot of their offense is generated by what they do defensively. And if you're strong with the ball and you don't turn the ball over, I think they can go through droughts where they struggle to score. Particularly part B is if Isaiah Miller is not having a player of the year type game on the offensive end, then I think they really start pressing as far as how to generate shots. They have some good players. They have guys that can score. They have good shooters. They can throw the ball inside at times too, but they don't have guys that are absolutely relied upon to contribute 14, 15 points every single game, aside from that one player. So if there's one thing, I'd say it's generation of offense, and then just shooting from the perimeter has not been a tremendous strong suit for them. So I think those would be the areas that would be their weakest points.
There you have it. The scoop on UNC Greensboro from somebody who knows him well, Chattanooga head coach Lamont Paris. Thanks, Lamont. All right, we're now pleased to be joined by UNC Asheville head coach Mike Morrell, who is going to give us the ultimate scouting report on the Winthrop Eagles. And we'll start with an easy one, Mike. Why can Winthrop advance in the NCAA tournament?
Well, Jeff, they remind me a little bit of the teams that we had at VCU. Not exactly the style of play, but they're extremely unique in how they play, and they're hard to prepare for. Not only their personnel, but just how they play. They're extremely fast. They are as deep of a team as I can remember playing. Coach Kelsey's just done a tremendous job with those guys, and in today's age, you don't really they don't have a lot of guys that average. Maybe Chandler Vaudrin averages over 25 minutes per game, but they just wear you down. And it's really hard to simulate how they play on offense. And I really think they're extremely underrated defensively. And they just stay fresh, man. They're old, which old wins in March. But they are going, I don't know what seed they're going to get, 13, 12. I'm not sure, but I know this, I would not want to see them if I were a higher seed, because it's really, really hard to prepare for those guys. And it's really a credit to them. They do a great job playing together. And I do think this too, Jeff. I think they are playing with a chip on their shoulder because they won the league last year too and did not get an opportunity to play in a tournament.
Who's their best player or players? Who do you got? I mean, obviously, Vaudrin is
right.
The guy who gets the most credit.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the guy that you've got to focus on?
I don't know that you can focus on one guy. I mean, if you watch their game today, I mean, DJ Burns was unreal. It really starts with him, but I'm telling you, man, they are so deep. I mean, they can go 11 deep and not think a thing about it. When you look at their stat sheet, sometimes you kind of you take a second look because they have so many guys who average double-figure minutes a game. But Vaudrin's really good. I think a guy who doesn't get talked about enough for them is Charles Falden. He's an older guy. He makes shots. Anumba. I mean, they're the best team in our league by far at crashing the offensive glass. So they got a lot of guys, man. And obviously DJ Burns is a guy who can score at any level. He's a transfer from Tennessee. So, I mean, he's obviously was recruited at a high level, but he can score against anybody. They just pose a lot of matchup problems. And we could talk about other guys too, but those are the three guys. And Adonis Arms can really get it going too. He's a guy who can shoot, he can bounce it. And with the pace of play, they just get a lot of people involved. So if you go into a game saying, we're going to shut this guy down, you're probably going to get hurt because those other guys play with a lot of confidence too.
What is your biggest concern with them maybe matching up against a high major team, or what's their biggest weakness?
Well, I tell you this, they're not going to be afraid of anybody. They're not going to fear anybody. And I think that's really obviously kudos to them because they've won a ton of games. I don't know how many games, they've won out of whatever. So if you're a high major team or a high level team, and you expect them to kind of be afraid of you, they're not going to fear you. And so I don't know that they have a lot of weaknesses. What are they, 22-1 or something like that? They shoot the ball extremely
and you got the one.
Well.
You got the one against them.
Yeah. But I tell you, they shoot it extremely well, and they go on runs. Like you're kind of like it's a 9-0 run before you can even turn your head a little bit. So
how did you get him, Mike? How did you beat him in the one win? What did you do that worked?
Well, I don't know that I don't want to say that we did anything, but you've got to limit their runs, and you've got to really try to guard the three. Valdrin is just so good at getting others involved, and he's so big, he backs you down and he kind of makes the defense converge. And man, as soon as you do that, somebody's getting an open three. So obviously, they need to see shots go in, but they can beat you in a variety of ways. So I don't know that they have a lot of weaknesses. And again, I think, Jeff, I don't think they get the credit for how good they are defensively because how good they are offensively. Right. And so the door really swings both ways for those guys. They've done a great job, man. And I've been in the Big South for 3 years as a head coach and in the league, one as an assistant, and they're the best team that I've seen. So they're really good.
Well, we appreciate the in-depth scouting report. Mike Morrell, head coach, UNC Asheville, the only team to beat Winthrop this season. So there it is. You have it. The scouting report on the Winthrop Eagles, why they're so good and what you have to do to beat them from somebody that actually did beat them. Has there ever been a rookie that you just knew was going to be a star? How many young players in the NBA and the NFL have there been that you wish you could have invested in? Well, now Prediction Strike makes that wish a reality. Prediction Strike is the only performance-based sports stock market that allows you to buy and sell shares of professional athletes as if they were stocks. Prediction Strike lets fans create portfolios of their favorite athletes so that you can get even closer to the game. Don't just draft your favorite players in fantasy, invest in them. Here's what you have to do. Visit PredictionStrike.com or download their app on the App Store to create an account. Then deposit funds to buy, sell, or hold shares of your favorite players, just like you would do with real stocks. The value of the players will change based on game performance, and you can trade your shares of players at any time as long as the player isn't currently playing in a game. Prediction Strike also just rolled out a brand new feature that allows you to join a league or add friends just to see who the sharps are buying stock in. See who is performing well, who has a better portfolio than you, and whose trades you can follow. So head to PredictionStrike.com now or download the app now. Sign up with the promo code FIELD. Again, that's FIELD, F-I-E-L-D, and you'll receive $10 free with your first deposit of $20 or more. That's the code FIELD again, F-I-E-L-D.